We began offering a process where we say, choose some subject of which you have some interest, and no long-standing habit of worry, doubt, fear, guilt, all of those being representatives of resistance. What is the difference between a higher vibration and a lower vibration? What makes the difference in the speed? It's always resistance. It's always the introducing of something that is of a lower or slower vibration. And so when we say higher and faster, can you feel that those two words mean the same thing? When we say higher, faster, purer, can you feel that those three words mean the same thing? And all of them mean absence of resistance. So we encourage you to take 2 or 3 subjects every day that you have little or no resistance about, subjects where you have some interest, and just hold the subject softly for 17 seconds and watch what happens. Let the universe show you how responsive it is to your vibrational output. You are literally offering a radio signal in every waking moment that the universe is responding to. And so what we're wanting you to do is to begin to deliberately offer the signal. So someone gave Jerry the book, and in the wee hours of the morning, he is sitting up in bed reading it. And when Esther awakened, he had been reading it, and he had already found several favorites that he wanted now to read to Esther. So she laid in the bed, and he read some of these wonderful stories, sort of 17-second kind of stories, where the universe had delivered these miracles, or so it seemed. The preface of the book was written, or the introduction was written by Bernie Siegel. And he talked about how he often finds pennies everywhere he goes, and that he takes these pennies as signals from the universe of well-being and abundance. And whenever he sees one, he knows that that's what the message is, that it's a deliberate message for him. And so Jerry read several stories, and then he read the introduction very last to Esther, and she was lying in the bed, and she was saying, I believe that. In other words, I know this. This is our experience. We have this happening in every day many times. And she got out of bed and brushed her teeth and picked up her makeup pouch, and out of the pouch flew a penny and slapped down on the counter of the bathroom sink, seconds from her being on her feet. And she said to Jerry, they really have a good time with us, don't they? In other words, it was not so significant that there was a penny in her makeup pouch. That is not hard to understand. But one in all of the years of Esther's travel had never leaped out and slapped down on the counter as if to say, here I am for you, with such power and clarity and poignancy and timing. And so they got ready. It was the day they were flying. They went to the airport, and as they went through the checkpoint, they wanted to examine Jerry's bag because he has all of this electrical equipment. And so while they were looking through his bag, Esther took the briefcase and put it at his feet so that he could strap it on the bag when he was finished. And as she turned to walk away, she said to him, watch the bag, I've put it right at your feet, because she thought he might not see it and might stumble over it. And as he looked down at the bag, there were 2 pennies laying beside it. And he picked them up, and Esther grinned, and she said, the fun is only now beginning. I can feel it. And she put the pennies in her pocket, and then they got onto the airplane. And as they're on the airplane, she carries a great big black purse that she calls her saddlebags, and anything and everything that they might possibly want while they are flying is in there. And the small miracle book was in there too today, and she had stuffed it all up under the seat for takeoff. And then Jerry said, is that little book in your purse? And Esther said yes. So she drags the book down between her legs and opens the zipper, and here's Small Miracle standing on its end in the book, and right on top of it 2 little pennies right on the spine. Not the same 2 pennies. They were still in her pocket. 2 more shiny pennies. And then they opened a magazine. Esther opened the magazine, and as she looked, the title read, A Penny Here, a Penny There. And Esther said, you guys are good. You guys are really, really good. Now, what we are getting at here is, as you are acknowledging how much of this is already happening in your experience. In other words, from the place of saying, I'm not where I want to be, you can't get to where you want to be. But from the place of saying, these gifts are coming all the time. The universe is bringing me pennies every day. Pennies that are vibrational matches to my desire. In other words, this penny is not a great desire for Esther, but it is a representation that the universe is responsive to anything that you hold as your object of attention. And so what you're wanting to do is make statements in every day to those pertinent things that are important to you. And in the same way that something as simple as a penny can turn up, big things turn up in exactly the same way. In other words, the universe, the laws of the universe are no more or less responsive to a penny than to a student that arrives on your doorstep. These thoughts are magnetic. In other words, when you hold a thought for 17 seconds, it joins other thoughts that are like it. Think about all the thoughts that have been thought around you, thoughts that you have projected, thoughts that others have projected. So what happens is you sort of dig a trench or a groove where you stand, and most of you don't vary very far on either side of that groove. It's sort of by virtue of what you see. It doesn't have to be that way. If you were not so much observers, you could set your own tone more easily. A very blunt and powerful statement that we would like all of you to receive and integrate into your being is, one who is mostly an observer thrives in good times but suffers in bad times, while one who is a visionary thrives in all times, you see. So what we want you to do is observe less and imagine more. Observe less and pretend more. Observe less and remember selectively more. Life has brought you, by virtue of what you've been observing, to this habit of vibrational offering. You cannot observe or receive or often even imagine outside of that. It's like I can't get there from here because here is so dominant. What you're saying is, I want somehow to find a way of offering a vibration that's different from what I've been offering. And we say that desire is the first step. In other words, I want to vibrate in harmony with who I really am. And the way you sort of sneak in the back door of that is by making and meaning this one statement. I want to feel good. I want to feel good. In other words, if you will say it and mean it, I want to find a thought that feels good, not I want to find the thought that is most normal, or I want to go to the groove that is most natural, but I want to find the thought that feels the best. Very often you will take yourself to a different place. And if you already have a groove that feels good, that's fine. Stay there in that groove.
You think things have to go really, really slow because as a human race, things have been going really, really slow for one reason and one reason only. You are enamored with what is, so you give most of your attention to what is. So what is just keeps being what is. Different faces, different places, but same experiences over and over and over again. When you catch a whiff of the universe's ability to take your thoughts can instantaneously be transformed into things. It is that things can shift in the moment based upon your ability to believe what you are desiring. It's child's play. One day, Jerry and Esther, someone handed them a book, and the book was written by someone who was talking about abundance. And there was an analogy given that once you really get into the vibe of abundance, that it'll start demonstrating to you in lots of ways. And so in this description, pennies would start showing up everywhere. And Jerry and Esther read it, and they were not resistant to the idea of it, but it didn't feel very important to them. They felt in a sort of snobbery sort of way that they were way past that way of understanding creation. They weren't looking to create pennies, but the story captivated their interest just the same. And then the number of pennies that started showing up in their experience became ridiculous. It was like a raining of pennies around them. They were finding 20 and 30 pennies a day in places where they shouldn't have been, where they'd never been before. Esther was actually thinking for a while that Jerry was playing tricks on her, and he was thinking the same of her. In other words, so many weird things with the pennies, because they'd activated in their vibration, and the universe was demonstrating that anything that's active in your vibration can come into your reality if you are amenable to allowing it to be. Well, they're amenable to allowing the universe to create in their experience in any way that they are giving their thoughts, provided it's something wanted. And so they were wide open vessels for the universe to play with joyfully in that way. So this went on for several days, and they're getting on an airplane, and they got onto the airplane, and they're sitting in the bulkhead. They're buckled in. Everything that they own is up overhead because they are on the bulkhead, and they're sitting there. And as the plane is lifting into the air, Esther looked down and she said to Jerry, "You've got to see this. 2 pennies were standing on their edges." Nothing happens outside the physics characteristics of where you are, because there are laws that rule all things, but there are possibilities within those laws that humans do not allow. So the inertia of the plane, the vibration of the plane in that moment, the weight of the pennies in that moment, and the intentionality of Jerry and Esther to see remarkable things with pennies. They were no longer blah 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 ho hum about pennies. These pennies had demonstrated something that they thought to be before then an impossible feat. Esther said, I'm so glad we were together because no one would have believed me. And Jerry said, no one but me will ever believe you anyway. And Esther said, well, it's enough that you were here. All things are possible. If this time-space reality has the wherewithal to inspire within you a desire, if the desire can be born out of this, then the full manifestation of the desire can be born out of this also. If you can dream it, it has to be a reality. So you've brought us around to our favorite subject, which is the reason that you all are in your physical bodies anyway. And that's the turning thoughts to things. It's the comprehending the vibrational nature of this universe and molding or modifying my thinking to a place of expectation so that I can allow the thoughts of my desires to become bigger, more momentum, more pleasing, more momentum, bigger, more momentum, more pleasing, more momentum, until those vibrations become thoughts, and those thoughts become impulses, and those impulses become rendezvous with pennies or whatever, and those rendezvous support more knowing, and that more knowing supports more asking, and that asking brings more answering, and that answering brings more reveling, until finally you are in your physical bodies being who you were born to be, the creator of your reality, not sticking your nose in anyone else's, but letting life come to you and letting those decisions be born in you, and honing your egotistical point of self into a place where you allow the fullness of who you are to demonstrate in this time and space things that have never been demonstrated in this time and space before. You have put with precision details into your vibrational reality that you cannot constantly focus upon and comprehend, but your inner being can and does. So everything that matters to you is always understood and held in a vibrational place, waiting for your readiness. It was just such a wonderful feeling to Esther. The way she described it is that she then understood what the feeling of true worthiness is, that so many things that she had not even actively contemplated for so long were all mixed together and delivered with that manifestation. It made her realize that she's been being heard and that attention has been being given to the things that mattered to her, and that circumstances and events were being orchestrated. And it wasn't just the end product, it was the way in which it unfolded, the confirming patterns of ease and pleasure and fun and power and clarity. She said, in a nutshell, it represented everything that she'd ever learned from Abraham. And then she said to people around her that she loves, turns out it is as easy to create a castle as a button.